Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if there is a scientific reason behind the profound peace some people find in deep meditation, or if that feeling of deep insight is just wishful thinking? Well, today we're diving into some fascinating research that uses a really cool idea called neuronal criticality to explain some of the most advanced states of meditation. This paper is all about connecting the dots between what happens in our brains during deep meditation and what we actually experience. Think of it like trying to understand a complex machine. We can look at the individual parts, the wires and circuits, and we can also look at what the machine does, its output or its function. This research is trying to bridge that gap for consciousness and meditation. The central idea here is something called neuronal criticality. Now that sounds complicated, but imagine a phase transition like water turning into ice or steam. Right at that tipping point, water behaves in really unique ways. Neuronal criticality suggests that our brains might be operating near one of these tipping points. This critical transition and this state, this near-critical state, could be key to understanding advanced meditation. So what is neuronal criticality? Basically, it is the idea that our brains are constantly balancing between being too quiet and too chaotic. If neuronal activity is too low, information can't spread. If it is too high, it becomes unstable and disorganized. The brain seems to operate in a sweet spot, where it can process information most efficiently. This sweet spot is near a critical point. The distance of the brain's activity from this critical point matters. When the brain is closer to this critical point, it is more sensitive to small changes. It can integrate and process information in a really rich way. Think of it like a sensitive instrument that can pick up subtle signals. This is where the research connects to meditation. They propose that through practices, meditators might be learning to voluntarily shift their brain's activity closer to this critical point. Why is this important for understanding meditation? Well, if the brain operating near criticality maximizes information processing and sensitivity, then perhaps advanced meditation, which often involves deep insight and rich experience, is facilitated by this state. The researchers suggest that the practices of meditation might be a way of training the brain to access and sustain this near-critical state. Now, how does this relate to what we experience? The paper links neuronal criticality to something called predictive coding. This is a major theory in neuroscience that says our brain is constantly making predictions about the world and updating those predictions based on sensory input. The precision of these predictions, how much we trust them, is thought to be controlled by attention. They propose that meditation, especially advanced forms, involves a learned ability to control this precision. By downregulating the precision of higher-level predictions, for example, the brain might become more open to processing subtle sensory information. This controlled reduction in precision could actually push the brain closer to that optimal critical state. And here is where it gets really interesting. Different types of meditation might lead to different distances from criticality. For example, focused attention meditation, where you concentrate on a single object, might move the brain towards a state that is more stable and reliable, perhaps slightly away from the absolute critical point. On the other hand, open monitoring meditation, where you observe whatever arises without judgment, might actually benefit from being closer to criticality. This state allows for a broader integration of information and a more flexible response to a wider range of experiences. So what does this mean for the actual experience of meditation? The paper suggests that operating closer to criticality could lead to a richness of conscious content. This aligns with how many advanced meditators describe their experiences as incredibly vivid and profound. It is like the brain is taking in and processing information at a much higher capacity. They also touch on the idea of the always already phenomenology, where insights feel like a recognition of something that was always true. This could be linked to a stable, generalized inference process that is favored in near-critical states. It is like your brain has finally settled into a highly efficient way of understanding things. A fundamental truth that was always there but hidden by the noise. The researchers also propose that near criticality the brain might develop a higher epistemic density. This sounds technical, but it essentially means there are more distinct models of the modeling process. In simpler terms, you become more aware of your own mental processes. You have a greater meta-awareness. This is a hallmark of advanced meditation. The ability to observe your own thoughts and feelings without being caught up in them. This heightened meta-awareness is directly linked to the near-critical state. It is like the brain is in a state where it can not only process information but also reflect on its own processing with great clarity and detail. This allows for a much deeper understanding of the mind itself. Now, for the really mind-bending part, the paper explores what happens in states of cessation of consciousness, where awareness itself seems to disappear for a moment. These are very advanced meditative states. Using concepts from information geometry, they suggest that in these cessation states, the metric of the statistical manifold of beliefs collapses. What does that mean in simple terms? It means that the brain's ability to update its beliefs based on new information essentially shuts down. When everything collapses to a single point, there is no longer a space for belief updating to happen. This is a radical idea. It implies that in these states, the very mechanism of knowing or inferring becomes impossible. It is not that you don't know something, it is that the framework for knowing itself is temporarily suspended. This might explain why these experiences are so difficult to describe and why they feel like a complete non-experience. So, what is the big takeaway? Neuronal criticality provides a powerful unifying framework for understanding advanced meditation. It suggests that through practice, meditators can learn to fine-tune their brain's activity to operate near a critical point. This near-critical state enhances information processing, fosters perceptual richness, and increases meta-awareness. This research opens up exciting new avenues for scientific investigation. It gives us a way to connect the subjective experience of meditation to objective brain dynamics. While there is still a lot more research to be done, understanding neuronal criticality could revolutionize how we study consciousness, mental well-being, and the potential for human development through contemplative practices. It suggests that these profound meditative states aren't just mystical experiences, but are deeply rooted in the fundamental dynamics of our brains. It's a really ambitious idea, linking the very edge of brain function to the peak of human experience. The strength of this paper is its ability to weave together multiple complex concepts like criticality, predictive coding, and information geometry into a coherent story about meditation. It offers a truly computational perspective on subjective states. However, the paper acknowledges that much of this is theoretical, and the empirical evidence for these specific connections in advanced meditation is still emerging. The idea of cessation of consciousness being a metric collapse is particularly speculative and will require a lot more rigorous testing, but the framework itself is incredibly promising for guiding future research. Imagine if we could train people to safely and effectively access these near-critical states for therapeutic benefit, or simply for greater insight and well-being. That's the kind of future this research points towards. What do you think about this idea of the brain operating near a critical point? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more deep dives into the fascinating world of psychology and neuroscience. Thanks for watching.